Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's Mark Darwin, this is Tech in the Real World, and today we're going to be having a look at the new iPad Air M3. I've had an iPad Air M2 on the channel for the past 6 months or so, and I did review on this right back at the beginning, and I loved it. I've also had an iPad Pro M1 over my years and time, and I also love that. So since the advent of the M series chips in the iPads have become more and more powerful. So the question I want to answer in this video is, should you buy an iPad over a MacBook, and can you use it over a MacBook Air? Because from my testing on previous iPads, I have an iPad mini A17 Pro. It handles all the tasks of a most desktop class computers can handle because of the chip power. So these M series chips are seriously powerful. So it has no particular revamped design. It has the same screen, it has the same hardware essentially, apart from the new M series chip. So the question I want to answer today, not only can it replace your MacBook Pro or MacBook Air or other laptop, is it worth buying? Is it a substantial enough upgrade over the existing iPad series on the existing iPad Air, which is already fantastically powerful with the M2 chip in it? I can video edit and video render quite easily. So let's get into this main review and answer the question that we set out. Does the iPad Air M3, is it a big enough upgrade to justify buying, and what do you get with it, and how does it perform compared to the iPad Air M2 and M1? So let's start off with taking a trip back in time. So it was when Apple introduced the M1 iPad Pro back in, 5 or 6 years ago. This was a game changer. They were putting a desktop class M series chip that was previously only seen in their MacBooks in the iPad Pros. And this enabled us to have iPad desktop class performance in the iPad, and it was amazing. Everyone was wowed by it. They showed some fantastic uses for it on the demos, like in hospital uses, doing 3D modeling and all sorts like that. And it was incredibly powerful. It was great. Fast forward to 2025, and we've now got 4 generations of M-powered iPad Pros, and we've got 3 generations of iPad Airs powered by the M series chip. So the real question is, do we need this much power in these iPads? Have Apple lost sight of where the iPad is going and who's it for? So let's look at the Android world for a moment. At the moment, we have, you've got Windows laptops, and then you've got Android tablets that sort of run alongside them. And then you've got the Microsoft Surface, and you've got 2-in-1 PCs like the Samsung Galaxy 5 Pro 360 I reviewed recently, which flips over and becomes a giant tablet. The disadvantage of those for me is that they're not true tablets, because you have to start them up into Windows software, and then you have to use the pen to flip them over, and they are essentially a computer with a flipped over screen, not a tablet. A tablet is a device you can just pick up and use to watch media on it, to put right on it, and it's instantly starting up. It's always there, just as runs the software in the background all the time. It's always on, always available to use. So I think there is generally a distinction here. I think there is a market for the tablets and for MacBooks and for laptops, and there are a market for 2-in-1 devices as well, but it's not a true tablet replacement in my opinion. So all the way back in 2020, I traded in my Intel MacBook Pro for a iPad Pro, and I decided that I was going to go and use an iPad instead of my MacBook, because I loved the portability of the iPad. I loved the screen size of the 13-inch model, since it was about 2 years after it came out, I think. And I also loved the new Magic Keyboard combination, so I could use it as a laptop if I needed to. So I got all these together, used it for several years, absolutely loved it. I didn't do any video work on it at the time. I didn't do any content creation or anything like that. So for me, as an office-based device, computing, note-taking, it worked perfectly, and I loved it. And I used it for several years. Fast forward to now, a few years ago, I got the MacBook again, because I realized I needed it for my content creation, and it wasn't enough. However, we're now in a world where Apple have brought out Stage Manager, iPadOS, and you can actually use the device as your main device and hook it up to a monitor. So today I tried it out. I hooked it up to a monitor as my iPad Air M3, and I used it to do DaVinci Resolve on it and Final Cut Pro, and it worked really well. I didn't really notice any difference between that and my main laptop. There are some disadvantages, and we'll go over those in a minute, but it does have, it's becoming more like a laptop. I don't know if this is the right way to go, because I think a tablet should complement a laptop still, but It may be that eventually tablets take over from laptops and we'll have a tablet rather than laptop. I just don't know which way it's going to go. So I've been working with the iPad Air 128GB M3 in a blue and also the Starlight colour and with the Magic Keyboard, and I've loved it. So the Magic Keyboard this year has been revamped, so it's got a new design. It's got an aluminium hinge on it, which looks really, really nice, and it feels much more sturdy on the desk, and it feels a bit more premium to use for the £249 price they're asking for it. I've got the Apple Pencil Pro anyway, which I use for the iPad mini, and it's really, really good and really useful. So this setup feels like a quality setup, and the M3 chip is incredibly powerful. I've done some really powerful things on it. I've done lots of video editing on it, and it works really, really well. And the revamped Magic Keyboard is lovely, so it's a really nice thing. So one of the highlights of my workflow during the testing was using Final Cut Pro on the iPad Air, and multitasking with the M3 chip. So I had Final Cut Pro open on my I borrowed a big 32-inch monitor from someone, and I used that. Had it open with Word, had it open with other different Outlook, and it didn't slow down at all. Bear in mind, this doesn't have has half the amount of RAM that a MacBook has, and it's running really, really well with Stage Manager connected. No problems whatsoever. So where you start to run into issues is if you haven't got an app for your, if there's not an app available to use for the software you want to use on the iPad. So it's limited by iPadOS. It's self-limiting essentially. So if there's not an app available, you can't use it. You can't run it because it's not macOS. Do I think they should put macOS on the iPad? No, I don't. I think the two are separate at the moment. I think they should be kept separate. And I think for some people, buying an iPad and using it as your main device is perfect. And I think for other people, it's not. So where's the verdict so far? The conclusion I came to at the moment is what I loved from this 2 weeks trial was that it was portable and more portable than a laptop because it was always on. It had USB-C 3.1 for high-speed connectivity. I could connect it to a Thunderbolt dock and use the Ethernet connection. It works just like a laptop in that sense. The Magic Keyboard redesigned is very, very nice to use, and the M3 chip does feel noticeably faster when pushing it hard. If you're not going to push the chip hard, look for a second-hand M1 or M2 Air. It's very, very similar. The M2 Air does have the advantage of the camera being the front camera having landscape now rather than at the top, so I'll go for the M2 Air. You can get some really good deals on that at the moment, so try and find that if you're just going to use it as a tablet. There are some drawbacks though. The display is still a 60Hz, and I said this on the iPad Air, iPad A16, I hated the 60Hz display, but for some reason on the iPad Air it looks a lot better and works a lot better, but it is a bit dated compared to 144Hz tablets on Android world you can get. iPadOS has improved tremendously since it came out. I'm a big fan of it now, but it's still not as good as macOS for file management. You can't download lots of software for it. There's far more apps, far more software for macOS, and it just generally is much more usable every day if you're going to use it as a creative, I think. So let's be real about this. The price with the Magic Keyboard and the pencil and the tablet is nearly £1,000. So should you buy both? So what I'd do is, if I was just going to buy a laptop, I'd go for a MacBook Air, an iPad Air with a folio case and the pencil, and that would save you the money on the Magic Keyboard, give you a really powerful tablet to use when you want to just take your tablet around and you can edit video on it and then transfer it across to your MacBook when you get home, or if you don't want to carry a laptop around or vice versa. I think that gives you the best of both worlds and the versatility to use it in everyday situations. By all means, if you don't want to buy both and you can't afford to buy both, which a lot of people will be in that situation, get the MacBook if you're creative. You're going to need it in some points, like After Effects and things like that will not run on the iPad at all, and you can't even get Premiere Pro for the iPad at the moment. It's Premiere Rush and it's not as good. So I think the iPad 11-inch is big enough for me. The iPad 13-inch gives you even more flexibility, but then the cost goes up. So I love the 11-inch design. I love the 11-inch iPad Pro. I think that smaller screen factor is more portable. It gives you the option to buy a MacBook with it because you're saving some money on the screen size. I just think the 11-inch base model using external hard drive is the way forward, and it gives you plenty of flexibility. So 1 to 8 gigabytes is plenty when you're using a 4 terabyte external SSD because of that USB 3.1 high-speed port. So should you look at the iPad Pro? So I think the iPad Pro is an amazing device. I tried it out. It's got a fantastic tandem OLED display, but it's so expensive. Even if you went for a 256GB base model on the 13-inch with all the gear, the pencil and everything like that, you're looking nearly £2,000. And you can spec it well over that with the 2 terabyte option nano texture display. And yes, if money is no objective, go for it. It's a fantastic device. It's a great tablet. Again, I'll go for the 11-inch model because it's much easier to use. And it's got an M4 power in it, which is even more powerful than the M3. But the M3 is so powerful for the iPad Air. It's a great device. The iPad Air is the sweet spot, in my opinion, in the iPad lineup. Perfectly aligns with the Apple's ethos with the iPad, and I think it's just exactly where people should be spending their money, is the iPad Air M3. I think it's a fantastic device. I think it's exactly what you should be buying if you're looking for an iPad-based tablet. There are better Android tablets out there, but none of them can quite match the performance of the M3 class chips, I don't think. So if you use it as a creative, and also the creative apps that are made for the iPad are so much better than they are for the Android ones. So can the M3 iPad Air replace your MacBook? In all honesty, I think it can, but the question is, would you actually want to use it as your main device? Because of the iPadOS limitations. So I think, as I've said before in this review, if money is no object, or say you're in a mid-ground budget range, iPad Air, ideal setup is an iPad Air base model with the MacBook Air or a MacBook Pro base model. I think that'll give you plenty of flexibility and plenty of options. Or even if you get an iPad Air with a decent spec to a MacBook Pro, or even even if you've got an iPad Air with a Mac Mini M4 Pro, that would be a good combination, because then you could use the M4 Mac Mini in the studio, and you could take it out and about with you. The iPad Air when you don't want, if you haven't got a laptop anymore. And I think that combination would work quite well. So you can transfer your files over from Final Cut Pro in the iPad world to the Mac Mini, which is quite useful and really a unique feature on the iPad and the ecosystem. It ties into all that. So I can't see myself trading in for an iPad Air solely yet, but I will be using it alongside my laptop for a few more weeks yet, and I will decide whether to keep it or not, or stay with my iPad Mini, which I absolutely love, and I'll be doing a 6-month review on that soon, because I just really, really love the iPad Mini. I think it's a great device for everything, especially when you've got a MacBook as well alongside it. So I really appreciate watching this, guys. I hope it's been helpful in deciding which, if you should upgrade or not. As I say, I think if you've got an iPad Air M2, don't bother. If you've got an iPad Air M1, look at upgrading. If you've got an iPad Air with the A chips in, definitely upgrade. It's a big upgrade. The M3 chip is fantastic. It works really well. It gives you the flexibility to do gaming on it, creativity, and it's really powerful. It never seems to run hot, and it just is a great tablet. So thumbs up for the iPad Air 11-inch and the 13-inch as well, because I know someone's got a 13-inch, and the colours are lovely. I love the blue and the starlight, my two favourite colours. Let me know in the comments down below which colour you would go for, and if you love the iPad Air as much as I do. And if you don't, let me know why, and let's start a conversation about this. So I really appreciate a thumbs up, guys, for this video, and a subscribe if you like it. Thanks so much, and I'll speak to you next time.